B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Stump the Rabbi series, where after a little bit of Divrei Torah, you guys will ask questions, and B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. Tonight's Shiur is going to be an exciting one. There's going to be a lot of interesting things about the weekly parasha, about what's going on in the world today. It's also a sad day where today the Arab terrorists unfortunately, murdered and injured many Jews in Eretz Yisrael. In fact, it was right around the corner of Rabbi Ephraim's house. It's actually a place where we did a shiur, where these terrorists had a coordinated bomb attack, bombing buses, because quite frankly, the only thing they know is to murder. So that's unfortunately what they did. We actually have some family that knows the boy, 15-year-old boy, that was murdered by these vicious animals, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, and also injured almost 20 other holy Jews. So B'ezrat Hashem, this shiur will be for the Nu Nishmat of the precious neshamot that left this world today from Am Yisrael, and certainly for the refuah shlema and recovery for all of the Jewish people that were injured in this attack, and also for the refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and also for the Atzlacha Rabba of Marsa bat Julie, and all of our children, and all of Am Yisrael, and all the righteous Noahides. We are only a few days away from the release of the third and final trailer for the new movie, the Gehenom movie. Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of great feedback from different people that are interested in this movie. The last trailer is going to be the longest one. It's about 5 minutes, and certainly it's going to pique your interest. Also, for any of you that want to contribute to become partners in this movie to whatever capacity you want, whether big or small, there's literally a chance of a lifetime to be part of it, so much so that a person could actually have their name added to the credits or even the introduction of the film. You just go to the campaign website, gehenom.com. That's GEHINNOM.com, and there's an explanation over there of what's available. So this is something that everybody should do, because it's these are zchuyot, these are merits that a person is not going to be able to get in any other way. As many as projects as we have, and as many as there are other organizations that do amazing projects and good things out there, this is something that's unlike any other. So the door is closing in a few days, but anyone that wants to get involved is more than welcome to. Last but not least, right now we are not only in a physical war with Ishmael, but we're also in a spiritual war with Ishmael. Just like we've been in a spiritual war against Esav, for many years now, where the missionaries, the Christian missionaries, are attacking Am Yisrael, and unfortunately succeeding at times to convert Jews to Christianity. According to a statistic, they converted nearly 500,000 Jews over the last few decades, the last 3 decades or so. So the Christians, unfortunately, already stole quite a few precious neshamot, and as I told you guys a few years ago, the Muslim Dawa, that is in essence their version of missionizing, is also now targeting the Jewish people alongside with everybody else, and at times succeeding, at least confusing people. So more than ever is a Jew really responsible to have knowledge of what Torah really is and what it's not, because that's really the only thing that's going to help you when people try to create confusion. And this is one of the things we're going to learn from this week's parasha. We're going to learn a little bit about Yaakov's Torah versus the teachings of Ishmael and Esav. So our weekly parasha, Parashat Toldot, is certainly full of endless insights that we can go into. We've covered in the past, and Baruch Hashem we'll cover today, and Bezrat Hashem we'll cover in the future. One of the things that we learn early in the parasha is a very interesting teaching that could literally fix every single marriage out there if you would listen to it. And we're not going to go too deep into it because there's a lot of material. But in the beginning of the parasha, we learned that Rivka, the holy Rivka, is also barren, just like all of the other matriarchs. They're all barren. The Gemara says because Hashem made them barren because He wanted their prayer for a miracle. But unlike anything else we've seen thus far, we see that Rivka prays in a very different way, in a way that teaches us a tool that every couple can use in order to improve their marriage exponentially. And that is, it says that Yitzchak prayed before Hashem, opposite his wife, because she was barren and they desired to have children. And Hashem accepted his prayer, and his wife Rivka received twins. So we see from here that both Rivka and Yitzchak prayed together. He was on one side, she was on the other side. You have financial issues, health issues, whatever issues there are, you need to pray together. Now, of course, in order for you to have that interest, and even more so, that inclination to do so, it's even more important for a couple to learn Torah together. Because if a couple learns Torah together every day, instead of wasting their time watching TV or playing on their phone or talking about other people, if they simply watch, even if it's only 15 or 20 minutes of Torah together, this is something that can improve the marriage, in a way, unlike anything else, because it's a unification of the souls. It's a unification of the neshamot of the couple that brings their ideology together as well as their souls themselves together. That's something that can improve the marriage in a very, very big way. So here we see that the results that Rivka and Yitzchak got from praying together were obviously amazing, and certainly this is something that we can learn from and we can apply to our lives. After this, the Torah goes into the birth of the two sons. You have Yaakov, you have Esav, and initially it's the Gemara says that when Esav and Yitzchak were teenagers, were young kids, they looked exactly alike. They both looked like yeshiva bachurim. They both looked frum. They both looked the part, that they're coming from a good yichus, a good family. Of course, their father is the Gedol Hador, Yitzchak. The grandfather is Avraham, the Gedol Hador. So these young kids, they look exactly the same. Their voices are the same. But then as they start growing up even further, things start to change. Esav forms into what the Torah calls a skillful hunter. A skillful hunter. Now, this means the literal term, what's skillful hunter. He was more into hunting and killing than and physicality than anything else. But even more so, the Chachamim teach us that Esav literally became a bigger and bigger criminal as he aged. Where at this stage, the Esav was put a tattoo of a snake on his thigh, and really the skillful hunting is not referring to his hunting of animals, but rather of hunting married women, of raping women, of killing people, and also fooling his own father Yitzchak to think that he's righteous. To think that he's righteous by asking questions that have to do with Torah to make it seem as if he's studying, to make it seem as if he's pious. But as soon as he leaves the house, he's back to being a criminal with a tattoo on his leg of a snake, and the knives and the murder and the rape and everything else out there. Very similar to, unfortunately, the way of the world today, where you have people pretending to be pious, but as soon as they have the opportunity, they become their real version of the murderers that they are. So this is one thing that we already learn about Esav. And then later on, we see the Esav grow even further when it comes after he comes back from the hunt and he sees that Yaakov is cooking. Now all of us have heard the story where Yaakov is making this stew, and then Esav wants this stew so bad that he's willing to give his firstborn rights, his Bechorah in Hebrew, and they in essence make the trade. But there's a lot more to it than just simply that. The Bechorah is what represented the spirituality. Because the Bechorah in Judaism had a significance since the time of Adam HaRishon. The firstborn initially, until Mount Sinai, the firstborn were actually the Kohen Gadol. They were the Kohanim. They were the ones that would would bring the sacrifices to God. They were the ones that would get a larger inheritance. In essence, they were the holy ones. So when Esav says, I'll give you this Bechorah, just give me this red stuff, and that's the reason why he's called Edom, because Edom comes from the word similar to the word for Adom, which is red. We learn something deeper there, which is, why would you call Esav Edom, the nation of Edom, just because he had a red stew? It's because the essence of Esav was materialism. The essence of Esav was this red stew, was this physicality. So he cared less about spirituality. That's the reason why he was willing to simply give his Bechorah, give his spiritual status to Yaakov, simply to get some type of physical pleasure. Even more so than that, we learn from here the ways of the wicked, where Esav says that, look, I'm going to die, so what use is this Bechorah for me? And the prophet Isaiah in chapter 22 verse 13 says, the wicked people are saying, Echol v'shato ki machar namut. Let us eat and drink because tomorrow we will die. This is the attitude of the wicked. In today's language, people say, you only live once. That's the same type of mentality. That's the same thing. That's in essence a modernizing of the Torah verse that says, Echol v'shato ki machar namut. Eat and drink because tomorrow we're going to die. What is that attitude? That attitude is, enjoy your physical enjoyment as much as possible today, because who knows what you have tomorrow. That means if you want to commit adultery, that means if you want to steal, that means if you want to cheat, that means if you want to lie, whatever it is that's going to give you fun today, that's all you should be focused on. Don't worry about tomorrow, and needless to say, don't worry about the future. This is the way of the wicked. This is what the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, tries to convince every young man and woman to do. Forget about the future. Just have a good time with him today. Just have a good time with her tomorrow. And little do they know that that one particular act is literally going to transform the rest of their lives in this world and for eternity. Just because of that one act. As we learned in last night's shiur from Rav Pinkos, that the small acts of today of here make a huge implication of what happens in the upper worlds. So it's just like when somebody pulls a little rope at the bottom of the bell tower and makes the big sound at the top of the tower. It's the same concept with this. This is the attitude of the wicked, where they don't think that the rope is going to do anything. They don't think that little button that's connected to an atomic bomb is going to do anything. They don't think that ignoring the Torah is going to do anything. They think that, let me just enjoy today. This type of attitude was the attitude of Esav. Now, after this desecration of the spiritual status that God gave to Esav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to allow this transaction to go through because Esav disrespected it. He spurned this Bechorah, and therefore the transaction is halachically permitted. Halachically permitted. Now, later on we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Yitzchak, their father, and he tells Yitzchak that he's going to bless him, increase his offspring, and give him all of these wonderful things. Why? I will do this because of Avraham. heeded my word, and observed the safeguard established by my word, my commandments, my edicts, and my Torahs, plural. So here we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is outright telling us that there was a Torahs, plural, before Mount Sinai. Now, of course, we've always known that the oral Torah was here since the time of Adam HaRishon, but at the same token, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin actually says that this is also referring to the Noahide laws. The Noahide laws, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 57b, goes to a very similar verse where Hashem talks about how Avraham observed his Torahs in earlier part of the Torah in chapter 18, verse 19. Very similar verse to what we have here, and he says this is referring to that particular verse was to teach us that Hashem gave the Noahide laws to mankind already from the beginning. And one of the proofs of it is this verse, and even more so, another proof of it, because he's a just God, he wouldn't punish the entire world. He wouldn't punish Sodom and Gomorrah for homosexuality and promiscuity and stealing. He wouldn't punish the generation of Noah with a complete annihilation for homosexuality, for the abomination and idolatry that they did. He wouldn't punish anybody unless they knew the law. So here we see this, the Gemara says that there are many verses in the Torah, in Sefer Bereshit and other places, that show that God gave the oral Torah to mankind, and the parts for the Gentiles was the 7 Noahide laws. And one of them that we learn from here is that the women are also obligated in these laws, not just the men, specifically the laws of Noah in regards to, we're talking about the Gentiles, the laws of Noah, where the women are obligated to have a justice system, just like the men are obligated to have a justice system. So here we see that the way that Jews learn Torah is not just by reading stories. This is not a storybook, but rather by looking and delving into each and every single word and seeing what our sages said, how they extrapolated each and every word and connected it to our entire Masot, our entire tradition, to see what everything means. Later on in the parasha, we move forward. We see the story in of Yitzchak becoming more and more similar to his father, where he has this problem with Avimelech taking his wife. Obviously, finding out shortly after that his wife is not his sister; it's really his wife, and giving her back. But one of the interesting things is we see that after Avimelech sees that Yitzchak is succeeding, he kicks him out. He says it's embarrassing that you are more rich than the king. You're richer than me. But then after they see that Yitzchak continues to succeed, they come back to him. On them it says in Proverbs chapter 16 verse 7, Birtzot Hashem darkeish gam oivav yeshlim imo. When Hashem is happy with somebody, with the righteous person, even his enemies will come back and apologize, just like Avimelech did. But Avimelech didn't have the pious status to apologize like a normal person. Rather, he came back and said, we want to be friends, we want to have peace with you, and just make sure you don't do evil to us, because we've never done anything evil to you. On this, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says, "En adam roe chova le'atzmo." A person does not see the obligation himself. This Avimelech doesn't remember that he's the one that actually caused evil to Yitzchak. He's the one that kicked him out. He's the one that caused tension between the two, not Yitzchak. He is having Yitzchak swear to him that he's not going to do any evil to him, as if Yitzchak has any history of doing evil. He doesn't realize that all the evil came from Avimelech himself. But that's the nature of the wicked. That's the nature of wicked people back then, and the nature of people hasn't changed till this day. After this section, we go and we see that the Torah does something very interesting, which is it tells us that Esav is 40 years old and he gets married to two women. He gets married to Yehudit and he gets married to Basmat. And then right after that, it goes into the story of the blessing debacle, where Esav thinks that he's the one that's going to get the blessing from Yitzchak. That was the plan. He goes out there to get some food to hunt some game for his father, as per his request, thinking he's going to get the blessing. That's an eternal blessing. That's a huge blessing. And he doesn't really care about his father. When he sees that he's not succeeding in catching any deer, he simply kills both of his hunting dogs and he cooks them. Because he doesn't care about his father. He cares about the blessing. And we even see it in the verses later on when he serves the dish to his father. He yells at him, says, "Get up and eat." Meaning he doesn't say it like Yaakov, which you also see in the verses where Yaakov says, "Please, father, it's me." It's the whole build-up to eventually asking him if father would rise and be more comfortable to eat. Esav, when he talks to his father Yitzchak, is abrupt, obnoxious, and simply an insane person. But Yitzchak still sees only the righteousness in him. He sees the good in him because he asked him, all types of Torah questions like, if I have salt, do I still need to give maaser on it? Just like I give on money, just like I give on the cattle, just like I give on everything else. Should I give to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever? I should give them 10% of my salt. I should give them 10%. Meaning he's asking questions, which of course you don't have to give 10% of the salt, but Esav was such a con man that he would use anything he possibly can to try to overcompensate, which is the way of Esav. This is the reason why the verse in this parasha in chapter 27 says, "Akol kol Yaakov vayadayim yedei Esav." The voice is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands are the hands of Esav. Literally, it actually referring to the physical, the act that happened, which is that it was a Yaakov speaking to his father Yitzchak, but he was wearing the skin of the animals that he slaughtered in preparation to make his body seem more hairy. But the sages teach us, the holy Jewish sages teach us, that this has a much deeper meaning, which is that the wicked people, the deceivers, the Esav, the Yishmael, they're going to sound like Yaakov. They're going to sound righteous. But in reality, if you give it enough time, if you double check what they say, you'll eventually realize they're Esav, they're Ishmael. It's still the same. They just sound like Yaakov. They sound righteous sometimes. They sound like they make sense. They sound like they care about you. They sound like they want the better good. But in reality, you'll see it's nothing like that. Why? Anyone that is not following the Torah has no concept of what good is. Simply no concept, because good could only be defined by the creator of good. And the creator of good gave us the definition and the instructions to be good through his Torah and nothing else. Not the Quran and not the New Testament. But of course, even righteous people can get fooled. And we actually see this actually happening in our parasha. And this is the part we're going to spend the rest of the segment on, which is the teachings of Ishmael, the teachings of Esav. How can they fool people? First, we have to start with, how did Esav fool Yitzchak? Yitzchak is righteous. Yitzchak has Ruach HaKodesh. Yitzchak is a prophet. But you should know that prophecy and Ruach HaKodesh is not a all-day, 24 hours a day thing. It happens when God wants it to happen. So here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not want it to happen. Did not want it to happen and allow this to happen the way it did. But how did Yitzchak not know his son? How did he get fooled? Like I said, the first thing is that every time Esav would see his father, he would pretend to be righteous. He would say things. But even more so, we actually learned B'siyata Dishmaya in this week's parasha that there is a reason why every verse is where it is, and we also learned that there's a reason why God decided to put the couple of verses that talk about how Esav, at 40 years old, decided to get married to these two women right before it talks about the blessing. Technically, if you look at this verse, where it's in chapter 26, verse 34 and 35, it really seems out of place. It has nothing to do with what happens right after, which is the blessing debacle, and it has nothing to do with what happened before. So, you're trying to figure out, why do I need to know that Esav got married at 40 years old to these two women now? If you want to mention it, just mention it at the end of the parasha, just like it mentions that Esav married a third woman, Ishmael's daughter. So let's just find out from there. What do I need to know now about these two women? So this is what we have to learn. Esav married these two women, and we see that these women are named Yehudit and Basmat. So the first thing that a person can rationalize is that if he was the only one that's married, it's only rational for his father, Yitzchak, to want to give him the blessing over his brother who's not married. This is rational. He's married, he has more need for a blessing rather than a single man that doesn't have any responsibilities at this point. So that's the rational aspect of it. But of course, we don't work off of rationality. We work off of verses in the Torah to support our rationale. And Baruch Hashem, we found some friends to support it. So here we see that there is names being mentioned of women. But if we look further in the Torah, and we move forward to chapter 36, verse number 2, from 26. So we're moving forward 10 chapters to a completely different parasha, Parashat Vayishlach. Torah tells us that Esav had a lineage. This is the history of Esav. These are the offspring of Esav. What are they? Esav had taken his wives among the Canaanite women. Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. Aholibama, daughter of Anah, daughter of Zebeon the Hivite. And Basmat, the daughter of Ishmael, sister of Navayot. So anyone that looks at the two here says, wait a minute, there's a contradiction. Here it says, in our verse, in our parasha, it says that Basmat is married to Elon. Whereas in chapter 26, Basmat is not the daughter of Elon, she's the daughter of Ishmael. What, she changed father? Even more so, we don't see Yehudit. Yehudit, the daughter of Beiri. She's not here. And then Machla, which is the woman that he married, that's the daughter of Ishmael, at the end of this week's parasha, she's not mentioned here. We're mentioning Basmat. So what, is there a contradiction? Now, of course, if you go to the Christians, if you go to the Arabs, they're going to tell you, oh, you see, I told you there's mistakes in the Torah. I believe in the revelation, but I just don't believe that revelation is in the Torah that the Jewish people have. We believe in the Quran, we believe in the New Testament, we believe in the Shtuyot, we believe in everything else. We don't believe the people of the book. Even though our own books say to believe the people of the book. The Quran says, believe the people of the book, the Jewish people. If you find mistakes in the Quran, if you don't know what to do, go to the Jewish people. Same with the New Testament. The New Testament itself says, if you have any issues, go to the people of the book. Go to the people of Moshe Rabbeinu and his Torah. That's where the truth is. Their own books say to go to us, but the people of today are so ignorant of their own teachings that apparently, we know more about their teachings than they know. But needless to say, we don't need to know their teachings. We need to know our teachings. Is this a contradiction or not? Is this a mistake, chas v'shalom, in the Torah or not? Now, of course, if you're a Christian or you're a Muslim, you read the Torah literally, you take it at face value, and already after just a few weeks into the year, you found the mistake, you simply can't learn anymore. Why? There's a mistake, so it's not divine. Now, if you are a Jew, you don't learn Torah literally. You learn Torah based on what the interpretation of everything is, which has support from other verses, from other books, from other teachings, from other parts of the Torah. Now, one of the things that we see here is already at our parasha, we learn something extraordinary. Not only will you never find any mistakes in the Torah, but everything has an explanation that's very clear. Esav was 40 years old, and he married Yehudit, the daughter of Be'eri the Hittite. And then he married the Basmat, the daughter of Elon. The Ramban, 800 years ago approximately, 750 years ago, before he gives even his own opinion, he tells you what Rashi said. This is how our sages treat each other. They respect each other's opinions. They take it. Even if they have a contradicting opinion or they disagree on something, they honor. Unlike the teachers of today in the other religions, and unfortunately sometimes among ourselves, where people disregard the sages of the past. Our sages, the way they look at everything, they tell you this is what is accepted opinion. So Rashi says, and we don't understand a single verse in the Torah without Rashi, that these names, Basmat, Yehudit, they're fake. They're not real names. What does it mean, not real names? This is the way that Esav fooled his father, Yitzchak, by taking on a girl named Basmat, calling her Basmat. Really, she was Ada. Her name was Ada, the daughter of Elon, the same name that it says in chapter 36. But he called her Basmat. Why? He says, look, she does Ktoret, the incense offering to God. In reality, she did incense offering to our idol. But he wanted his father, Yitzchak, to think that the incense offering that she's doing is for God. She's righteous. And even more so, the other girl, Yehudit, her real name was Aholibama, like Osama bin Laden, like Obama, like this. Aholibama. Aholibama was mentioned in chapter 36. But in this week's parasha, she's named Yehudit. Why Yehudit? Because the wicked one, Esav, nicknamed her Yehudit, as if to say she rejected idolatry. She became part of our people. Yehudiah, in order to deceive his father Yitzchak. He called her Yehudit, but in reality she was an idol worshiper. And what's the proof they were both idol worshippers? The very next verse in the Torah says that these wives were rebellious and provocative in their actions against the word of Yitzchak and Rivka. So from here we see that if you look at things in the Torah at face value, like the illiterates, like the spiritually illiterate and sometimes otherwise, idolaters and so on, what you're going to end up with is confusion, is what seems like contradictions, and it's very, very simple for you to lose hope, to lose faith. But if you learn Torah, the Torah of Yaakov, you learn Torah, the Torah of Am Yisrael, you have to look at things much more deeply and not fall for the traps of the wicked deceivers. Because the deceivers, their number one job, their number one mission in the world is to fool you. But they're not going to fool you by saying, listen, there's no such thing as Abraham. There's no such thing as Yaakov. There's no such thing as Moses. They're not going to do that. They're going to tell you, yeah, we believe in Moses. We call him Musa. We believe he's Moses. We believe in Abraham. He's also our father. Yeah, we believe in Yaakov. We believe in Yitzchak. We believe in God. We're the same God. We're cousins. It's just that your people changed the Torah. And we have the real version. We have the Quran. And the same concept with the Christians, with their nonsense. So what are they going to do? How do they do this? They do this with a pleasant voice. The voice of Yaakov. But in reality, it's the hands of Esav. Now this week, one student of mine, a Baal Tshuva Baruch Hashem, sent me a clip of some Arab sheikh that is targeting Jews. And of course, just like the Christians, they always target the ignorant, unlearned Jews, the ones that more or less do not observe Shabbat or learn Torah on a regular basis. And they make a video about it. Because in the eyes of the Muslims, in the eyes of the Christians, one Jew is worth 1 billion of their own people. So they'll celebrate fooling one Jew, converting one Jew, chas v'shalom, and literally destroying one Jew's eternity. They'll celebrate that for the rest of their life, even if the rest of their life is full of failure with their own communities. So this Arab sheikh, what did he do? He made a little short clip that confused my student, where he says to a Jewish man that comes to him, sounds confident, and a Jewish man doesn't look Jewish, but doesn't have a kippah or anything, he's not a yeshiva bachur or anything, but he comes to him and he says to the Arab sheikh, but you believe in the Torah, right? So the sheikh says to him nice and calmly, yes, I believe in a divine revelation, but I just don't believe that divine revelation is in what you call Torah. The Jewish people changed it. Oh, why do you think that? Oh, there are contradictions, obvious contradictions, numerical contradictions, he tells him. So of course this guy doesn't even have a clue of what's about to hit him in the face, this Jewish guy, because the Arab is prepared, or at least he thinks he is. And he says, you want me to show you? Trying to be like friendly and open. Yeah, listen, you're not my target. I'm not looking to do anything. I'm here to educate. I'm here to, enlighten. But if you want, I'll even help you. I'll show you where there's contradictions in your own Torah. So, of course, the ignorant Jew says, okay, sure, go ahead. And he says, look, you have a Torah, and your Torah says in the book of Kings 2, chapter 8, verse 25, that Achaziah became king of Judah at the 12th year, and when he was 22 years old. 22 years old. He was in Jerusalem. His mother was Atalia, the granddaughter of Omri. But then if you go to a different part of your Torah, same Torah, and of course he's looking, this Arab is looking at a Christian King James Bible. He's not looking at the Torah. But anyway, for all intents and purposes, in this particular conversation, it doesn't actually matter. Now, he says in a different part of Torah, in Chronicles 2, chapter 22, it mentions the same thing. Only one small difference. It says Achaziah was 42 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother was Atalia, the granddaughter of Omri. He says, you see, it's the same Achaziah. He became king in Jerusalem, same mother. So you can't tell me it's a different Achaziah, because she has the same father. She's the granddaughter of Omri. So how could he become king at 22 and 42? So you see, I have tons of this, he says. Mistake. 20-year difference, 42 and 22. Obviously, it's a mistake in your Torah. If there's one mistake in the Torah, it's not divine. So, of course, the poor Jew has no idea what to do. And they make a mockery out of this, and they're having a good time. So now, my students send this to me. Generally speaking, I love to debate. I did it as part of my business for almost 20 years. But I don't do it in the religious world for several reasons, which I have a whole shiur about why I don't debate. And generally speaking, because I don't debate, I don't usually address these types of people. Because I know that to help them is impossible because they're not looking to be helped. But here I knew it has nothing to do with helping the Arab. It has to do with my student and anybody else that's watching this stupid video by the Arab that's distorting our Torah. That's who I need to help. So I took some time and made a short video to respond to it. Anyone that saw it, praiseworthy. Anyone that didn't will have the same exact answer here. You see, if you're an Arab or a Christian, as I said and will repeat 1.5 million times, you read the Torah literally, you read the Torah at face value, you read whatever you see, and you make a whole big deal out of one sentence. If you're a Jew, if you're Yaakov, you don't do any of that stuff. Why? You read the whole book and everything else that's connected to it. Because that's the only way that you can be sure that you are aware and familiar with the world around every verse, not just that one verse. And had that Jew, needless to say, had the Arab, had a little bit of sechel, they would have said, hold on a second, you're saying that chapter 22, second verse talks about Achaziah, 42 years old. What does it say before? What does it say after? Because obviously the story of Achaziah didn't just start here out of nowhere. There has to be something that led up to it. And if he just simply went back 2 verses to the end of chapter 21, instead of being at chapter 22 at the beginning, the end of chapter 21, he would have found the answer. Where the end of chapter 21, in verse 20, it talks about the father of Achaziah. And it says the father of Achaziah, Yochaz, it says earlier that he got sick. He had an intestinal disease that was incurable. He got punished by God. And the last verse says that he was 32 years old when he became king, and he ruled for 8 years in Jerusalem, and he departed without enjoyment, meaning he died, and they buried him in the city of David, but not in the graves of the kings. So here we already learned a whole lot of stuff. Number 1, Achaz, that was 42 and 22, has a father, Baruch Hashem. His name is Yochaz, Baruch Hashem. His father had an intestinal disease, which is the way he died. When did he die? At 40 years old. How long was he king? 8 years. 40 minus 32. He became king at 32, died at 40. That's 8 years. So now in the Jewish world, if you die at 40 as a king, it is impossible for you to have a son that's 42. Maybe if you're Arab, maybe if you're something else, but a Jew, we don't do math that way. We cannot be 40 years old with a 42-year-old son. So obviously, if he died at 40 years old, his son took over to be king when he died. And in fact, if you look at chapter 21, it also says that his son Achaz was not even his oldest son. It was his youngest son. Meaning that there were sons that were older, but they ended up dying, and the only one that was left at the time of Yochaz's death was Achaziah. So How do you rectify all of this? So you already know that if his father died at 40, the statement that says that Achaziah was 42 years old when he became king obviously cannot be taken at face value. Whereas the statement of him being 22, that's mentioned in chapter 8, verse 25 in Kings 2, that can be taken at face value. Why? It's perfectly normal for a 40-year-old to have a 20-year-old, 22-year-old kid. That makes sense. So how do we rectify the 42? What do we do with that? Is that a contradiction? Is that a mistake? Only in the Arab world. Only in the Christian world. They don't know how to learn Torah. But the Jewish world, we look at the entire sentence. We see that God made sure that every word is placed there carefully for a reason. And in there it specifically says that his mother was Atalia, the granddaughter of Omri. Why do I care about his grandfather? Why do I need to know that Achaziah's grandfather was Omri? Why? For what? That's because King Asa was Achaziah's great-grandfather, married the son of Yehoshaphat to the daughter of King Omri, and combined the family of King David, which were righteous, with the wicked people of Omri. And because of that, they both got punished. Meaning his father died at a young age. He himself only led as a king for a short period of time. The entire family was cursed because they combined the righteous and the wicked, and thereby everybody became wicked. When did this happen? 42 years before he became king. Meaning that the first time in Kings 2, where it says that Achaziah became king at 22, that's when it's referring to his real age. The second time it says when he's 42, it's because it's referring to a time frame. This kinghood is connected to what happened 42 years ago. So you see, Rabotai Karim, if a person allows themselves enough time to learn Torah from the Jewish people, from the sages that have toiled and toiled over every single verse and have support and evidence for every single thing that's in the Torah, you will find an answer for every question humanly possible. You'll never find something you don't have an answer for. You'll never find something there's no explanation for that could affect your life. You will have all of the issues you can possibly imagine addressed in the Holy Torah. But if you go out there and you go listen to Esav or Yishmael, then what you're going to end up with are people that are looking to deceive you because they have an agenda. Just like Esav had an agenda, just like Ishmael had an agenda, but they're not going to tell you they have an agenda. Because to you, they're going to sound like Yaakov. And that's why our weekly parasha says, Akol kol Yaakov, vayadayim yedei Esav. The voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esav. If you learn Torah from Esav, even if he sounds good and he's a good speaker and he's exciting and he's this and he's that, remember, he's still Esav. It's forbidden to learn Torah from him. It's forbidden to believe anything they say. The same goes for Ishmael. The only place that you can rely on are true Torah Jews. Jews that learn Torah honestly with the tradition at hand, with the Masoret, with the explanation, with the sources, and without an agenda. We have the answers. You just have to ask. Very simple. Baruch Hashem, this allows us to not only address different interesting issues within the weekly parasha, but also take some of these tools to deal with some of these problems that are out there in the world today. You have the Christians missionizing at the highest level in history. In the past, when they tried to convert the Jews to Christianity and the Jews refused, they simply murdered us by the millions. Today, they're not murdering us physically, at least not for the last 75 years, but spiritually they're looking to murder us left and right. The missionizing by the Christians is not going to stop anytime soon. The Muslims, on the other hand, Ishmael, their dawah is no longer just focused on the Christians and the atheists. It's also focused on the ignorant Jews. It's also focused on the naive Jews. They target Jewish women in Eretz Yisrael with money, with all types of luxury, with all types of false hope, just to bring them back to their villages and rape them and pretend like they're married to them, only to literally tie them with chains to the refrigerator and never allow them to leave again. Many Palestinian terrorists don't realize that their mother is Jewish. They're brought up to hate their own brothers because they don't realize that their mother is actually Jewish. 60,000 Jewish girls have been captured by these Muslim terrorists. 60,000. We're talking about big numbers here for Am Yisrael. We're not China and we're not America. We don't have hundreds of millions of people. 60,000 girls for us is an enormous number. They're doing this to the girls. They're doing this to the boys. In America, the fastest growing religion is Islam. They've normalized it and beautified it to the point where your average American is becoming more inclined to adapt it, to fall into it. And in fact, many of the black guys and girls in America that are part of this Hebrew Israelite movement are now feeling empowered by joining Islam, where they're either going to call themselves the real Jews, and the real Jews of today that are Torah observant, they call us the fake Jews, because they're black and we're not, even though there are plenty of black Jews, but apparently they're not aware of this. And Judaism is not determined by skin color, and never was and never will be. Nor is it determined by DNA. Never was and never will be. But nonetheless, these black people think that their color is so significant that it determines their heritage, their lineage. And many of them are actually going to Islam. Some of them are staying with Christianity. Some are going to Islam 100%. Some have a mix of both. Literally, they have a mix of both. It's the same mishmash of craziness, but it's empowering a lot of people that are looking for attention, looking for a position of power, and they're making movies, and they're making videos, and they're making protests, and they're making a lot of noise. This has already been going on for several years. There was a movie that came out a couple of years ago that made a lot of noise, and a lot of black people went after it and followed the Hebrew Israelite movement, slowly but surely becoming more and more anti-Semitic. Then the idiot Kanye West put even more fuel on the fire with his idiocy and his anti-Semitism and his ignorance, even though what he said wasn't necessarily as bad as what some people make it seem to be. Still, nonetheless, in the eyes of people, especially the ones that are already have the Jews on their target and on their radar, he magnified the fire. So now you have a bunch of these so-called Hebrew Israelites, these Muslims and these Christians, making all types of videos and lectures and debates specifically targeting the Jewish people and our Torah, and distorting the reality, distorting the facts, and worse yet, they're not receiving much of a response. The Jewish world remains quiet. One of the reasons is because the common belief is that if we address them, if we respond to them, perhaps it'll make them angrier and more violent. This is a flawed logic. We've seen it time and time again fail, where when we don't respond, when we don't defend our Torah, we don't defend ourselves, it doesn't help us. It doesn't help us in any way. In fact, especially with people that are hot-tempered and people that are looking for attention, like these Hebrew Israelites, not responding to them actually fuels their fire even more, because from their warped logic, they think that because we don't respond, we don't have a response. And therefore that gives them even more empowerment in their eyes that they're right, that they really are Jews. Initially, they just figured, listen, I'm African American, my ancestors were slaves, this, that, even though that has nothing to do with me, hundreds of years have already passed. My favorite thing to do is play basketball, football, or I want to trade in the stock market, or I want to be a doctor. I live in America. None of the slavery actually really affects me, but nonetheless, I'll play that slavery card because sometimes it helps me get some people to say nice things to me, get accepted in schools, in jobs, and so on and so forth. So, this is the black guy before the Hebrew Israelites. Once the Hebrew Israelites capture this guy, he's in their radar, they get him on, all of a sudden, he's no longer a victim. He's no longer a victim. No, now he's the leader. Now the Jews are the slaves. The Jews are the enemy. How? Just a few days ago, you were saying that you are persecuted, you can't get the right job, you can't get the right school, you can't get the right this, you can't get the right that, and now you're the empowered one, you're this. What happened? What, just because you had a conversation, you saw a video on YouTube? What happened? Why? Because you put that funny clothes on that you got from some costume store? How did you change from this to this? The truth is, Rabotai Karim, all of this comes from ignorance. Ignorance of the Jews and the Gentiles alike. Now, the Jews are obligated to know their Torah. The Gentiles are obligated to know their version of the Torah, which is the Noahide laws. Of course, many of them don't even know that exists. But the point being is that the only defense that a Jew will have in the spiritual war that's today against the missionaries of Christianity or the missionaries of Islam or the mix-mash of the Hebrew Israelites, half Muslim, half Christian craziness, the only way is if the Jew has knowledge of the truth. Knowing enough of the Torah to know how to deal with these issues takes time. It takes time. So you can't get that time tomorrow. But what you do need to get, and what you do need to have already right now, is enough confidence in our Torah and enough humility in your knowledge where you know that if somebody shows you something that contradicts our Torah, something that you don't understand, you simply say, listen, I don't understand. I have to look into it. And even if they say all types of pressuring statements to you saying, what? You don't know your own Torah? You call yourself a Jew? You don't have an obligation to know the entire Torah by heart. This is why debates are not really the best example of knowledge. Debates, generally speaking, are the example of who knows how to think quickly. To think quickly, to come up with tools and words in order to fool the audience, to carry them to the other side, similar to a lawyer. Real debates are done with time, with text, without pressure. So don't debate anybody. Not online, not on videos. Focus on learning. Focus on learning enough to know the information, to know the Torah, and also to develop enough humility that when someone gives you something about our Torah that is contradictory, that is not explainable, just know you don't know everything, but you could find out. If you take enough time, you open up the books, you'll find the answer. Trust me when I tell you, we've been around for 3,333 years, since we got the Torah of Mount Sinai. No Arab from 1,400 years ago, and needless to say, no idolater from 2,000 years ago, is going to teach us our Torah. If you combine both of their religions, they don't add up to a single page in our Holy Torah. But of course, they will always sound like Yaakov, because that's their intention. If you allow them, they'll make you even feel like they're Yaakov. The key is to know who's really Yaakov. The key is to know that Yaakov has the answers. You have to focus on learning our Holy Torah and not debating any of these monkeys, not debating any of these elephants, not debating any of these idolaters, not debating any of these people. You have to go learn about what Rashi says. Now, for anyone that knows me already for all the years, this has nothing to do with race. This has nothing to do with color. I have plenty of friends, students, employees, former employees, all types of people that I've associated with from all over the world. I have students that I treat like my children and even spend more time with them than I do with my own children that are black people, that are Spanish people, that are from different parts of the Middle East. None of that stuff matters to me. I don't see color. So don't make any comment, oh, he's racist, he's this. Go play that card on somebody else. Even on my channel, you'll see that one of my very dear sons, who I call my son, but he's really from a different mother, he, married another one of my daughters. He's black, she's not. So we have made a whole movie for them. Not because we're looking for views, because we thought it was a special story. So this has nothing to do with race. Race has nothing to do with Judaism. Judaism has everything to do with the Torah. Now, to remind any of you that perhaps are going to be attacked or confused about the Israelite, Hebrew Israelite nonsense that is becoming louder and more obnoxious today, you don't need to debate them, because you could destroy their entire belief system in a single sentence. Their whole principle, their whole belief system is based on their color. Because they're black, therefore they're the Jews. That's their belief. Why? Because they believe that Judaism started somehow in Egypt. Not really sure how they got there. And then they believe because Moses married Tzipporah, and it says Tzipporah was a Cushite, and Cushite could be translated into a black woman, so therefore that also supports their warped logic. So again, Judaism did not start with Moses. Everyone knows this, but apparently no one taught them this. Judaism started with Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, we learn about him the first time at the end of Parashat Noach. Avraham Avinu came from Bavel, and he was in a city called Ur Kasdim. At the end of Parashat Noach, in chapter 10, you'll see that there's a city called Bavel, Babylon. And in that city in that country, they had a place called Ur Kasdim. And then after that, in the beginning of Parashat Lech Lecha, we see that Avraham leaves with his family Ur Kasdim and goes to Haran. Now, what are all these places today? Bavel is Babylon. Babylon, or Babylonia, you look it up on the internet, that is modern day Iraq. Iraq. And Haran is Turkey. Now, throughout all of history, including today, you will never find black people living and being the majority of the people of Iraq. Perhaps some African American or African black people, whatever it is, Haitians move there, hanging out there, maybe have a few shops, a few electronic stores, a few, restaurants, whatever they do. But as far as the people themselves in Iraq, have never and will never be black people. Some of them are darker, some of them are lighter, some of them have skin complexion like mine, some have a little darker, some a little lighter, but nonetheless, everyone knows they're not African Americans. They don't look like Kanye West. They don't look like P. Diddy. They don't look like 50 Cent. They certainly don't look like the Hebrew Israelites. Avraham is not something you can challenge. Everyone knows everything started with Avraham. Avraham came from Iraq. Sarah also came from Iraq. Not Egypt. Not Ethiopia. Not Nigeria. So anyone that says they're Jewish because they're black is simply an idiot who doesn't know anything about Judaism. Now, are there black Jews? Absolutely there are. There are black Jews in Nigeria. There are black Jews in Israel. There are black Jews in America. There are black Jews everywhere. But one of the unique things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into the creation, only in the Jewish people, and no other people, is that the Jewish people changed their form due to the air. That's what the Zohar Kadosh says. That the Jewish people, if they move to a certain place, their form will change over the generations to start looking like the people that they live next to. So that means that if you have an Ashkenazi Jew, white as a piece of bread, move him and his family and his little white kids that eat chulent and gefilte fish, you move them to Africa. You build a nice community over there. Go back there 300-400 years later, you're going to see some of his descendants without intermarriage. Some of his descendants are much darker than some of the people that you see today and call them black. Why? Because our skin complexion is not like other people based on biology. It has to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's spirituality. This is why you have Jews of all colors, of all shapes. There was a huge community of Chinese Jews up until maybe less than 100 years ago. Over 5,000 Jews lived in China, and they looked as Chinese as the Chinese people you see today. With the eyes, with the skin complexion, with everything. They looked Chinese, but they were 100% Jewish. This is not intermarriage. This is not conversion. Jewish. Same thing with Ethiopian Jews. Many of them that moved to Israel. Arav Ovadia alav shalom, paskin, after confirming that they were all 100% Jewish. Not converts. Not people that were born non-Jews and want to become Jews. No. They are 100% Jewish. And of course, there are many issues with the Jews from Biafra and other parts of Africa because there's not enough proofs. And nonetheless, even when there are enough proofs, there's not enough. Unfortunately, there's not a big enough rabbi with big enough shoulders to take it on and simply put the Echshel on the Biafran Jews and the other Jews that are living in Africa. But let no one confuse you to think that your skin complexion is what makes you Jewish or what doesn't make you Jewish. There are Jews in Venezuela that look exactly like the rest of the people in Venezuela. There are Jews in Iraq. There are Jews in Iran. To this day, there are Jews in Iran. Till this day, there's a community of Jews in Iran that are religious Jews. There are Jews in Yemen that look just like the Yemenite people. There are Jews in Afghanistan. There are Jews in India that look just like the Indians. Many of them moved already to Eretz Yisrael. There's an entire Indian Jewish community. In Israel, they all look like people from India. And they are from India. But they're Jews that have a direct connection to the time of the Bet HaMikdash 2,000 years ago. This is the one unique thing in the physicality of the Jews that's unlike anyone else in the world. Because if you're a Spanish, Chinese, Russian, black, whatever you are, and you're a Gentile, guess what? You can move to America as black. 300 years later, your kids are still black. So long as you contained the assimilation, your kids are still black. You're Russian, you move to the middle of Africa. So long as you contain the assimilation, don't assimilate with the people that are of different color, guess what? 500 years later, you're still white like a piece of bread, Russian. Why? Because the color of the Russian or the black or the Chinese or the Indian that are not Jewish have to do with biology, have to do with the physical makeup of the people. The Jewish people, it has to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It has to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we've seen, and we have proofs, where you can look online, pick any nation in the world, just put the nation and then the word Jewish after it. And you'll find pictures or even videos of Jewish people that have a written, not theoretical, not belief in my heart, written proofs that they are connected to the same Jews that were at Mount Sinai. They were connected to the Jews at the Beit HaMikdash 2,000 years ago. Syrian Jews, some of the oldest communities out there. What do you think? If you go to Syria, you'll see them look different? They look like Syrians. The Jews from Tripoli, my ancestors. What do you think? We look like Moroccans? No, we look like Jews from Tripoli. And Moroccan Jews, what do you think they look like? Jews from America? No, they look like Moroccans. Why? Because that's how Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world, with the Jews being unique, both physically and spiritually. Now, if you're going to play the race card, at least know who you're playing with. We are called the people of the book because we follow the book. We don't speak extra loud or extra obnoxious or extra intimidating just for the sake of proving our points. We don't need to. We have the proof. We have the connection. Now, if you want to join our people, you want to be a real Jew, you don't need to pretend. Salam alaikum. Welcome. You're welcome to come, but you have to convert. Orthodox conversion. Go to a Bet Din. Follow the laws of the Torah. Then you'll be a Jew. Don't tell me you're a Jew because of your color. Don't tell me you're a Jew because of some person that told you whatever they told you. You want to be a Jew? Follow the Torah. Torah says if you weren't born a Jew, you have to convert to Judaism. Judaism is not determined by DNA. Judaism is not determined by feelings. Judaism is not determined by theories. Judaism is determined based on the laws of the Torah. And those laws of the Torah welcome everybody in the world today to convert to Judaism if they want. But if you are going to continue playing this nonsensical card that's going to mislead the public, know that you will be punished severely. The Gehenom for the Gentiles that try to mislead the Jewish people will never end. The Mashiach will come. The world will end. But the fire that burns those people will never end. The agony and pain that they will have will be shown to all of society. So much so when the resurrection of the dead happens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will allow them to resurrect, completely disheveled and destroyed, just to see all of the righteous people prosper, and for all of the righteous people to see all of the wicked people that didn't follow the way of God. So if you want to follow the Torah, follow. Come. Join us. You want to distort the Torah? You are an enemy of God. and God will take care of you. For you Jewish people that are watching, it's better you get acclimated to your desk, to your books, because you have a spiritual war coming, whether you like it or not. With that being said, you guys can start asking questions in a moment. I'll have a drink, and Mezuzot Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. Okay, first question I see is, I understand that men should not watch TV due to perhaps viewing immodest women on TV. However, can women watch TV, such as the news and other old-fashioned family-type movies? No, what's forbidden for a man is forbidden for a woman. Women are also not allowed to watch immodest women or immodest men. And also, they're also not allowed to waste their time watching things that are not going to help them get closer to Hashem. Needless to say, to watch news and all types of things that are full of lashon hara, full of gossip, and needless to say, full of things that are antithetical to the Torah, is unhealthy for a marriage and will certainly cause problems for that woman in her life, in her marriage, and in her connection to God. So TV is not good for anyone. Now, to watch specific programs that are educational, whether it's to learn a trade, you want to learn some type of profession, or you're trying to learn some type of documentary, or you want to see certain videos about learning a skill or a certain subject, so long as everything is modest, you can. But this is selective programming. But to watch this general shows, the pretend he's the father, she's the mother, but he has a girlfriend and she has a boyfriend, and the kids grow up and they love everybody, and then they find out about each other and they can't, and they're disappointed, and then you get all emotional and you start thinking that your husband is cheating on you because the guy on TV cheated on his wife. All that stuff, get that out of your house, get that out of your life, get that out of your mind. It's not good for men. It's certainly not good for women to watch that type of stuff. You want to watch something that's educational, it's going to get you either a better job or more educated about something that's relevant to what you do every day, or something that's going to educate you about Torah. By all means, there's plenty of information that you can learn and watch. But other things are certainly a problem. And the news is simply not necessary. It's full of immodesty. It's full of lies. And it will create no value whatsoever in your life. There's no need for you to know the news. Other than if you want to see, maybe once a week, once a month, once a year, see the headlines, what's just the title, and you already get the point. Who died, who lied, who succeeded, who failed, who is being destroyed in the media now. That's it, that's the news. Every single day for the last 50 years. Nothing changes. Someone's asking, what does it mean to use Torah for personal benefit? As it's mentioned by Hillel and Rabbi Tzadok in Pirkei Avot, not to do it. And why is it such an important subject that it was repeated in two separate Mishnayot? So we have an entire series of Pirkei Avot that discusses these particular things in much more deep than I'll be able to do now, because it's a very deep subject. But nonetheless, it's when somebody takes the Torah and specifically teaches it for the sake of monetary profit or for the sake of profit for honor, and not for the sake of learning it for the sake of learning and learning it for the sake of teaching in order to get people closer to Hashem. When a person, let's say for example, is going to use Torah for in order to make money out of it, where he's going to end up saying things that are going to end up distorting the Torah. He's either going to say things that are not really in the Torah because he knows that people will like it more. So, for example, like people that say that there is no punishment and God really needs us, that obviously is not in the Torah. But there are people that say this, and they even claim that this is in the Torah because they know that this is what gives people a good feeling about their sins. And if they feel good about their sins because of what they heard from that person, then they're going to want to support that person because he makes them feel good. He makes them feel good about their wickedness. So a person like this goes to the Gehenom and never comes out. Never comes out. So using the Torah for that type of thing that's obviously a benefit for that person in this world, but it's certainly going to be a disaster to that person for eternity. So you're not allowed to use the Torah for that particular sense. Now, you're allowed to make a living. Meaning that if, let's say, for example, you want to teach, somebody asks you to teach somebody either a private lesson or a lecture, or teach them Gemara, or teach them Aleph Bet, whatever it is, you're allowed to charge for what you do because there's an opportunity cost. That if you weren't teaching this person or you weren't teaching this group, you'd be able to do work elsewhere and make a certain amount of money. So you're allowed to make a living from the Torah. There's no prohibition against making a living out of it, but you can't make the profit the primary goal like people do in the business world. Because when you do, it'll eventually and inevitably going to lead the person to changing and distorting the Torah, where either they're going to outright lie about what's in the Torah just to appease people, or they're going to eliminate part of the truth, where they're going to tell people parts of, let's say, the weekly Torah portion, but exclude the parts that talk about punishment, the parts that talk about observance of certain mitzvot that they know that people in that community are not observing. So the removal of the truth is also another form of lying. So when a person is doing it for a personal benefit, which usually is either for a benefit of money or a benefit of honor or a combination thereof, then they're going to end up changing the Torah and misleading people. And that's why it's so serious, because anyone that changes the Torah has no share of the world to come. And it's very easy to change the Torah. Very, very easy. You saw how that Arab changed the Torah. You see how the Christians change the Torah every single day. And unfortunately, you see many so-called rabbis change the Torah to their likings on a regular basis in order to fit their crowds, their audiences, by teaching them only parts of the Torah that they believe their crowd can handle, rather than teaching the Torah that their crowd needs. There's a difference between the two. What your crowd can handle is really not something that you could ever be aware of, because you're not a prophet. And if God gave the Torah to Am Yisrael, that means that we can handle the entire Torah. But what you need is different for different people. If you're in front of a crowd of people that are new to Torah, then you need to teach them about reward and punishment. If you're in front of a group of avrechim, Torah scholars, you have to teach them about things that are much more advanced, much more complicated. If you're in front of a group of elders, you have to deal with other issues. So it depends what your crowd is, but it's always the same Torah. It's just, it's what you teach that group. When you do it for the sake of teaching the students in order to help them better themselves, then the Torah itself is not going to change. But when you do it in order to better yourself, your own circumstances, the Torah becomes dynamic and constantly changes to the point where it's no longer Torah. Next question. Jeremy's asking, do I have to not sell my clothing 3 days before and after Xmas, or is that only buying from their businesses? Is it a violation of Lo Titkodedu if my shul prays the wrong way and I turn to Mizrach? So as far as selling your clothes, you can sell your clothes at any time. Especially since the customers, you're not targeting specifically people that are idolaters. You're not targeting specifically people that are part of the church. You have your business open. You do what you need to do. Now, if you could avoid it, avoid it. But because the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says that not to do business with an idolater 3 days before he goes to his idol worshipping holiday, because lest he'll use the money that you give him in order to honor his false god. So that's the source of what he's saying. So, but as far as if you're selling a product, your customer could be anybody. It could be an idolater. It could be a Jew. It could be a atheist. It could be all types of people. It could be a Muslim that are they're monotheistic. They're heretics, but they're monotheistic. So you have no problem as far as selling the things that you're selling. As far as anytime, even the day of or the day before. There's no issue there. As far as praying in a different direction and then your shul, that depends if there's a rabbi in the shul. If there's a rabbi in the shul, you have to follow the rabbi. But if there's no rabbi in the shul, then then you have to tell them that they're praying in the wrong direction. But certainly you should bring this up to the rabbi with proof. Bring a compass and show the rabbi that the direction is different. If you're so confident that it's different, show it to him, and I'm sure that the rabbi, if he has even an ounce of yirat shamayim, he'll change. It's not such a big deal. It doesn't require them to change a building or anything. Can you please explain what Chalav Yisrael, Pat Yisrael, Kemach Yashan on products really mean? It's necessary to follow these stringencies today. Yeah, technically. I mean, it's not... again, it all depends on where a person is in their life. If they're brand new, Baal Tshuva, and by brand new, I don't mean, they started doing Tshuva last week. Brand new even within the first few years. If it's difficult for them to take this on, then they could just focus on being kosher, focus on keeping Shabbat, being modest, the basics. If they're more advanced, or even if they're new but they're stronger and they're willing to do some of this, like only consuming Chalav Yisrael, which is having the supervision of Jews on the cow. It's not literally a cow that only lives in Israel. You could have Chalav Yisrael that's manufactured in America, but it has to be supervised by a Jew. It has to be done by a Jew as far as milking the cow. The Kemach Yashan has to do with the Pesach. These are different things that are certainly important, but again, it's if a person is brand new, it'll be too difficult for them to even understand some of this stuff. There's plenty of information online. You could go into more details. But I could tell you this. Today, if you live in America, or you live in Canada, or you live in England, Australia, Israel, really where there's the biggest, Jewish populations out there, it's so easy to acquire these products, whether it be Chalav Yisrael or Kemach Yashan or all the other things out there, that it's easy to observe these things if one wants to do it. It's easy to observe it. Usually, the problems that people have, I would say, with Chalav Yisrael is when it comes to candy. Because the candy that's available that's kosher, it's chocolates and things of that nature, all of the big brands are not Chalav Yisrael. Whereas the Jewish companies that have candy, they have similar things, and they are Chalav Yisrael. But if a person, let's say, he has a big lust for a Twix bar or Snickers bar, or some type of Hershey bar, that's not Chalav Yisrael. So if he's stringent with Chalav Yisrael, or he wants to be stringent with Chalav Yisrael, but you tell him, listen, if you're going to do that, you are going to have to give up on your weekly Twix bar. Now, if a person is weak, he'll give up the whole thing. So it's not worth it. It's not worth it to even tell him that, because that will just weaken him. On the other hand, if a person is not such a food hog, and it's not really such a big deal, then to keep Chalav Yisrael is not really a big deal. But I can tell you one thing, that there are certain Jews that are more stringent than others. When it comes to Chalav Yisrael, when it comes to Kemach Yashan. For example, Chabad is much more stringent when it comes to Chalav Yisrael than I think many others, if not everybody. To them, if it's not Chalav Yisrael, it's like as if it's not kosher. Now that's simply not true. If something is kosher, but it's not Chalav Yisrael, it's still kosher. And according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, one of the giant pioneers of American Judaism and one of the biggest rabbis in history, the regular milk that you have that's kosher, that you have in America, is perfectly fine to drink. And we don't have any concern about you drinking kosher milk that's not Chalav Yisrael, because the main concern that's behind Chalav Yisrael is that if you gave the responsibility to a non-Jew, he may end up giving you milk from a camel, or give you milk from, from a pig. Now, Rav Moshe Feinstein answers in his Igrot Moshe, and he says this is not a realistic concern anymore. Perhaps it was a concern in the past, in previous generations, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, but in today's world, it's no longer a concern. And the reason why is because these places where Jews live, like America, have such stringent laws for anyone that puts the wrong ingredients in their products that they could lose a lot more than they gain. So even if they hate Jews and they want Jews to consume non-kosher milk from some pig, they're never going to do it. They're never going to put pig milk or camel milk in a jar that says cow milk. They're never going to do it because they could lose, number one, all of their business. The government will shut them down. Number two, their customers are not only Jewish. In fact, the majority of their customers are non-Jews. So it doesn't. And number three, there's so much competition out there that if somebody would simply make a product that's not good, immediately they get replaced. There's very, very few products that are considered indisposable or like consumer staples. Very few products. Most things out there are replaceable. Most companies out there have to constantly innovate, even more so with food. So when it comes to kosher milk that's not Chalav Yisrael, according to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, it's not a problem for a Jew to drink it if it's not possible for him to get Chalav Yisrael. But if you live in a developed Jewish community and it's easy for you to get Chalav Yisrael because it's easily accessible, then certainly you should take it on. It's not really a stringency. It's not really anything. It's easily accessible to you. Why wouldn't you want to get Chalav Yisrael? But if it's difficult for you to get it because either the community is not developed so they don't have it, or it's like halfway developed, similar to Florida, where in Florida you get Chalav Yisrael, but many times, I would say probably about, at least now, I think lately it's been better, but I would say at some point when we first moved here, 50-60% of the time you bought the Chalav Yisrael, it was bad. By the time you got it to your house, it was already bad. Even though the date on it said that it was literally has another 2 weeks left. 2 weeks in their dreams. It was already bad the minute you got it to your house. Similar to the problems you have with organic eggs, where 9 out of 10 eggs have blood in them that you can't eat. So there are sometimes issues with the company or the community or the market. But if you have easy access to good products that are Chalav Yisrael or otherwise, because you live in a developed community, certainly you should take these things on. But it should never cause a fight between a couple. If, let's say, for example, the wife wants to keep Chalav Yisrael but the husband doesn't, no problem. Let him eat so long as it's kosher, let him eat his kosher dairy as much as he wants. Don't even look at him the wrong way. What he's doing is perfectly fine. And I know some really, really big tzaddikim that say they don't see a difference between Chalav Yisrael and regular kosher after doing a serious investigation on the two. Now, again, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein says it's allowed to drink non-Chalav Yisrael dairy, but again, he's not saying it all the time. He's just saying it simply that if you have no access or it's difficult to access Chalav Yisrael, then surely you could rely on the leniency of getting regular kosher milk. But if you have easy access to Chalav Yisrael, certainly you should try to use Chalav Yisrael. But if somebody is difficult or simply stubborn and they're bent on having just kosher, that's fine too. Don't give them a headache over it. This is not the place to argue on it. Meaning, couples should never argue over this stuff. Next question. Judah is asking, "Hi Rabbi, I heard for a long time one has 18 minutes after candlelighting on Shabbat and Yom Tov to still be allowed to do any of the 39 malachot, or is it only in emergency situations that one can use the 18 minutes?" Well, it's a good question. It actually depends on where you are in the world. Because the way that they do the clock here in America is different than the way they do it in Israel. They don't have that grace period in Israel like they do in America. Like the publicized time in Israel is more precise to the actual Shabbat time, whereas in America they have that approximate 18 minutes. Now, a person should know that even if they have 18 minutes, when they lit the candles, if they accepted the Shabbat in their mind when they lit the candles, that Shabbat came in there. Even if you accepted the Shabbat, let's say an hour before Shabbat. Let's say you say, you know what, I'm going to take on the added stringency on myself. I want to accept Shabbat an extra hour early. Okay? Now, you light those candles. You accept Shabbat an extra hour early. Let's say 5 minutes after you lit the candles. You realize that, I don't know, you forgot to turn on the stove. You forgot to, you forgot to put something on. You can't turn it on. Even though Shabbat hasn't started for everybody else. And it's not going to start for anybody else for another hour. You accepted it at that time. Now, you're allowed, halachically, to tell somebody that hasn't accepted the Shabbat yet to turn something on or off for you. But you yourself are not allowed to do it because your Shabbat already began. The same concept with the 18 minutes. If you and your wife accepted Shabbat at that time, Shabbat began for you. If you didn't, then you have that leniency, that room to do so, to use those 18 minutes to do different things. I would highly recommend for people to start preparing for Shabbat. As far as close up shop, don't work anymore, no computer anymore. 2 hours before Shabbat begins, so that way you have enough time to do all the last minute stuff, get dressed, do everything, and not leave everything for the last half hour or hour like many people do. Because once you get accustomed to using that last 18 minutes every week, it's very, very easy for you to start becoming accustomed to violating Shabbat also. So it's ideal. A person should not use those 18 minutes on a regular basis. Halacha Yomit says that upon waking up in the morning, if one needs to relieve itself and can't wait 72 minutes. Ovadia says that one should go to the bathroom first and then wash your hands afterwards. This is also Ovadia's personal custom. But usually everyone says to have water right next to the bed and wash it immediately upon waking up. What Kodevav explain? Well, you explain it yourself. If the person has to go immediately, if a person has either a weak bladder or whatever the case is, they have to go. They can't have time. They don't have time to wash their hands, even if the cups and everything is right next to his bed. But he or she has to go right away and relieve yourself. But if you can wait, then wash your hands and then go. You don't put your body in danger for the sake of washing your hands. If you can wait, which most people do, can wait, especially younger people that are healthy, then wait until you wash your hands. But if you simply can't wait, then definitely go. This is something that most people are going to have to not wait, at some point in their life. Either because of you drank too much before you went to sleep or whatever the case is. So you're not always going to be able to be picture perfect like a robot and wake up and wash your hands, and then slowly but surely get to the bathroom all purified and everything. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes you have to fly to the bathroom and and take care of your business there. And that's not a problem at all. What you shouldn't do if you don't, one thing you should take into account is that if you have not washed your hands before going to the bathroom, then you should try to make sure not to touch your face. Don't touch your face, don't touch your eyes, don't touch your mouth, with your hands. Don't touch anybody else before you wash your hands. That's something you should try. But obviously to clean yourself, to relieve yourself and all that stuff, it's fine. It's no problem. Shalom Rabbi, should a Torah observant Jew call Ishmael, change his name? No, chas v'shalom. No. Why should a Jew called Ishmael change his name? First of all, Ishmael is a name that means that God heard you. That's what Ishmael means. God hears you. Number one. Number two, we have some of the greatest sages mentioned in our Gemara. Rabbi Ishmael, Kohen Gadol. Ishmael, Kohen Gadol. was one of the holiest men that ever lived. So much so the Gemara says in Masechet Brachot that God asked him for a blessing. So, I mean, this is a unique Gemara, very interesting explanation on it. But the point being is, Ishmael is not a problem at all to have if a Jew has it. Unfortunately, it's become more common for Arabs to have the name Ishmael today than Jews do. But if a Jew already has the name Ishmael, they should not change it. No, there's no reason for them to change it. They should actually learn about the righteous people that are called Ishmael in Am Yisrael. That's what they should do. Well, Rabbi, is one allowed to give Chumash Tanakh with commentary to a Gentile? Let them get it for themselves. Why do you need to give it to them? Please explain shatnez. What types of clothing must be checked? It's a very good question. So I actually have on my website this is actually good for both in regards to the issues of shatnez. This is something that's good for both Jews and Gentiles to hear. And yes, I said correctly, Jews and Gentiles. Because shatnez is under the umbrella of what's called Kilayim. And this is the prohibition of mixing two different species of things. Now, both the Jews and the Gentiles are prohibited, not allowed to combine two species of animals. What they do, the breeding that people do with different species is forbidden for Jews, and it's also forbidden for Gentiles. According to the Noahide laws, Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin has a whole section, maybe 10 dapim about it, of all the different details of the Noahide laws. And one of the issues is Kilayim. So it's forbidden for Gentiles and Jews to breed two species together, like a dog and a cat or things like that. Also, it's forbidden for Gentiles to combine the trees, different trees. A pine tree and apple tree. Not allowed to combine different trees, which again is something that's standard in the world today. Now, once it was already combined by somebody, you're allowed to benefit from it. But to combine it yourself is a Torah violation. Torah violation both for the Jew and the Gentile. The Jews, according to the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, have an additional prohibition, which is shatnez, which is wool and linen being sewed in together. Now, on my website, in the section somewhere there for free education where there's books, if you scroll enough down, there's a file that talks about shatnez and different shatnez clinics, which are places where there are people that are professional, that check your clothes and suits and whatever you bring them for shatnez, and even also show you what typically has shatnez and what doesn't. So if, suits always have to be checked. There are also certain types of boots that were discovered to always have shatnez that's not removable. Like, for example, Uggs. The boots that, in my opinion, are really ugly, but I know some people like them. They are, a few years ago, I remember there was a big thing about it, that women found out that this thing has shatnez and it's not removable. You can't fix it. Like a suit, if it has shatnez, 9 out of 10 times, you could remove the shatnez and replace it with something that you're allowed to have, because the shatnez usually is in the collar and different parts of the suit, not the entire suit. So shatnez you need to check in, in blankets sometimes. It depends what your blanket is made out of. It depends what your clothing is made out of. But certainly there are certain things that are more prone to have shatnez, and shatnez is a biblical obligation. It's not a rabbinical. So much so that the Gemara says that if you know that there's another Jew that is walking around with shatnez, for sure, everybody knows, he knows he has shatnez on, you know he has shatnez, and he's walking around the street with shatnez, you are allowed to rip it off of him, even if he's going to end up being naked. Rip it off of him in the middle of the street. Why? Because him walking around with a biblical violation is considered chilul Hashem, desecration of God's name. So it's better that he gets embarrassed for being naked than Hashem's name being desecrated. So shatnez is a very big deal. Guys always need to check your suits. As far as the rest of your clothing, it depends what you wear. If you wear, sweatpants, sweatshirts, things like that, then that's usually not something that has a problem. If you have, silk products, that's not a problem. That's not an issue. But if you have things that have wool in them, then certainly you should have them checked. You certainly have to get checked. And whatever you have has to be checked. Regardless, if you wear it, you have to, you put it around your body, you have to check it. My cousin told me that she went to purchase mezuzot at a Judaica store in upstate New York. They asked her if she wants to purchase a kosher or, God forbid, a non-kosher mezuzah. This doesn't make sense. Can she report this store to rabbinic authority? Yes, she can report this store, but they're not going to do anything because Judaica stores many times are owned by either Gentiles or by non-religious Jews. It's purely a business. It has nothing to do with Judaism. They just simply capitalize on a need in the market by buying products that Jews would need, whether that's a mezuzah, cases, or different things for the candles. They're simply stores. They're merchant. It has nothing to do with Judaism. Unless you see that the store owner that's there has a kippah on, is an Orthodox Jew, don't assume anything about his products. Never buy a mezuzah or tefillin from a Judaica store unless you know that the owner that's running the store, not just owner that's behind the scenes, the owner that's running the store is a Yireh Shamayim Jew, has fear of heaven, and he's only going to have kosher stuff. But if you don't know, you don't buy mezuzot and tefillin from Judaica stores because many times their stuff is not only not kosher, it's fake. Like I've seen people literally get a mezuzah and then they ask me to check it. I open the mezuzah, it's printer paper that somebody literally typed on a computer and put it on a printer, and they put this piece of paper in there. It's worthless. You throw it in the garbage. Sometimes literally I've seen one time there was newspaper in there. So these are things that people don't realize because people put a lot of weight on the case itself, and the case is no different than your suit or your shoes. It's just a case. It's just shoes. It doesn't represent the holiness. The holiness is what's inside. What's inside. If she wants to buy a kosher mezuzah, she has to go to a kosher person, and a kosher person would never offer something that the Torah forbids, something that's not kosher. A righteous Jew will never offer you anything that's not kosher. So certainly she should not buy anything from them, anything at all. That's one. Two, she could report them to the rabbinic authority, but don't put too much weight on it and expect them to do anything. Most likely they're not going to do anything about it because they'll look at it just as a private business. Maybe they'll warn the community, but most likely not. And three, if she wants to get a kosher mezuzah, she can go on our website, be'ezathashem.org. We have two different types of mezuzot with different types of casings. All of our mezuzot come from Eretz Yisrael, from people that I know personally, that are Talmidei Chachamim, that are serious Torah scholars, some more than others. There's one Mekubal that writes our mezuzot, but they're much more expensive. And there's other Talmidei Chachamim that write our mezuzot. And the point is that they're available. They're not going to be $50 like you could buy at a Judaica store. They're more expensive, but you know what you're getting. I'm sure that there's other people that could sell you stuff for cheaper that's also kosher. But for me, I know what I want to have in my house. I know my dear wife, God bless her, she's very, very stringent when it comes to mezuzot. Very stringent. I've never seen anybody like her, God bless her. So it's if she could put a mezuzah on my forehead, she'd put. She wants the best mezuzah that exists in the world, and she will have nothing less. Why? She knows this is protection. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is in the Torah. This is big deal. Big deal. There's endless amount of stories that we have throughout all of the generations about the significant protection that a mezuzah brings to a person's life, and even more so, the significant damage that a person can have if their mezuzah is not okay. There is quite a few stories that I've told over the years, and I'm sure many other rabbis have told over the years, about literally people being ill, people not having the ability to give birth, to have children, people not finding their zivug, people having strange things happen to them, and many times somebody would tell them along the way, check your mezuzot. They would find a mistake in the mezuzah, and they would have to replace it, and literally the second they replaced it, everything was fixed. Sometimes you would see miracles in front of your face. Arav Grossman, Shichyeh, the Migdal Emek, he said a story in his sefer, in his personal life story, an extraordinary book, highly recommended for anyone to read. He says that one of the miracles that he witnessed in his own eyes is his own daughter had literally an incurable, undiagnosable eye infection that was destroying her face for a very, very long time. She was suffering, and it was a real big nightmare. And she suffered with this thing. She went to many doctors. No one could even diagnose what she had, why it's so bad. No one understood. One day he went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Alav Shalom, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe told him, check the mezuzah. And he immediately called his wife to check the mezuzah on the room that his daughter sleeps in. And the daughter is not in Israel. He called Israel. The daughter is with him in America. He went to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe in America. So the daughter is with Rav Grossman in America. But the mom picked up the phone in Israel, checked her room, took the mezuzah, gave it to one of the rabbis over there to check. They said there's a mistake in the mezuzah. What the ink on the word eyes is broken, or it's combined two letters. Bottom line is you have to change the mezuzah. They changed the mezuzah in Israel. Right there and then, literally took, maybe a half hour. The girl has been sick for like 2-3 years. They changed the mezuzah within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, this illness was almost gone. The doctor that saw her couldn't believe it. No one understood. Mamash mezuzah. So people have no idea. I did a shiur one time about mezuzot. People are willing to spend $1 million on a house, but they're cheap to spend a few $1,000s on mezuzot. It's the dumbest thing in the world. No problem spending $500,000 in a house, $1 million in a house, $2 million in a house, $50,000 on window shades, $20,000 on carpets, chandeliers, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Mezuzot, let me get whatever is the cheapest. Let me get 20 of them for $5. $50 each I'll pay, maximum. They'll spend $300 on a case, but they're not willing to spend $30 on a scroll. So that's the problem. That's why a lot of people have issues. And there was actually a study done in New York, maybe 2-3 years ago, by a group of Hasidim that took a bunch of mezuzot from different people, random people, brought it to a lab. These people said they bought some from the Judaica stores, from this, from that, different places. Random people, don't know each other, brought in their mezuzot, some shipped them. They checked. I think it was something like 85-90% of the mezuzot that they checked were pasul. And they show you exactly why it's pasul. It's not like they're just making it up. They show you 80-90% of the mezuzot the people there have were not valid mezuzot. And the Rambam writes that a person that misuses a mezuzah turns the mezuzah from a blessing into a curse. So for example, if a person takes a mezuzah and makes it like a chain, puts it on a chain, that's not a blessing anymore, that's a curse. He takes the mezuzah, he puts it under his pillow. He just turned that mezuzah into a curse. There's actually a famous Rav in Eretz Yisrael that somebody fooled his father to put the mezuzah under his pillow so he can get his health back. He died a short while later. After he died, this same Rav, who was a very big Talmid Chacham, just didn't know about mezuzot apparently, or this particular issue about mezuzot, found out what his father did. He asked some real mekubal. The real mekubal told him, "What are you talking about? That's your father just killed himself with that. Whoever told him that killed him." Not to do stuff like not to put your mezuzah under a pillow. Not it's disrespecting the mezuzah. So that's the thing. There are certain things you're allowed to do with a mezuzah. Certain things you're not allowed to do with a mezuzah. Point being is, mezuzah is a big deal. Big deal. Big deal. And a person that tries to save money on it or things like that, or spends more money on the case than they do on a mezuzah, unfortunately, many times they're going to regret it. Either because it's not going to give them the blessing that they want, or the protection that they want, or worse, chas v'shalom. David is asking, there are Noahides who told me that they are studying Mishnayot, even though they're not converting, because the rabbis they're following allow them. Is this really allowed for the Noahides to study? No. Those Noahides that are studying Mishnayot, every word that they're reading in the Mishnah is death penalty. Death penalty from Shamayim. Don't be surprised if a bunch of them get all types of diseases, cancer, and the like, and they start dropping dead. And this is not for the point of scaring, it's for the point of warning them from learning the oral Torah, which they're not allowed, and also warning them from listening to those rabbis that changed the Torah. I told them that they're not allowed to learn oral Torah. You want to learn the oral Torah, you have to convert. My mother is your color and hair just like yours. Baruch Hashem. Are there Sandia Jews? I'm sorry, I don't know what a Sandia Jew is. It's possible. I don't know. It's a non-Jew that said that they were a Levi when went up to the Torah for Aliyah on Shabbat. Is that person cursed? Can they do tshuva? Certainly they're cursed because they caused a bunch of Jews to say Hashem's name in vain, to say Amen in vain. So certainly they got cursed. Certainly they're going to get punished for it. And yes, they can do tshuva, but they're going to suffer for this. The only way they can complete the tshuva completely is if they convert. But if they don't convert, then they'll have to suffer for it. Rabbi, we need the series back on Elchanan Wasserman. You broadcast with examples. Why we have Baruch Hashem, the Era of Mashiach series is online. We also have a USB for it. Baruch Hashem. Forgive me. Are there Saudi Arabian Jews? Yes, sure. There are many Jews lived in harmony with Arabs at different times throughout history. I would say that the country that we had the most amount of peace with most of the time, not all the time, was Morocco. Morocco is a very, very favorable place for Jews throughout history. Most of the time, not all the time. There was an evil sultan that murdered some Jews, and including the Baba Sali's older brother, in front of everyone with a vicious way. He took not a tank, those cannon. He took a cannon and shot him with the cannon after he tied him to the tree in front of everybody. So much so that the Baba Sali was depressed. There was over maybe a 20-year difference between the Baba Sali and his oldest brother, but he was like his, he's like his rabbi, his father. He was like everything to him. And the Baba Sali was depressed over this for like 4 years. Barely left his room after seeing how his brother being murdered in such a vicious way. But it needed to happen for different mystical reasons. But that was an evil sultan. That was an evil person. Most of the kings of Morocco throughout history, including the one of today, are very, very favorable to Jews. They even have a history of this particular king's father, I believe, defended the Jews against Hitler. When Hitler wanted to come and murder all the Jews of Morocco, the king of Morocco said, on my own body. You want to fight the Jews? You have to fight me first. Mamash, he was a hero. He certainly has a share of the world to come just for simply that statement alone. And he did many, many good things for them. And the Jews have a very favorable treatment in Morocco. I actually have a couple of students that are in Morocco, but not enough. We need more. But Morocco was very favorable for the Jews, throughout history. They also have in Libya, in Tripoli, Tripoli, same thing. You had in Egypt, in Iran, in Baghdad. There's Jews from Lebanon, all over the Middle East. Jews have lived at some point or another. A lot of that changed in 1948 when modern-day Israel became a state, because once they became a state, many of the Arab countries, in essence, turned us into enemies. And there's a lot of problems after that. For example, the Syrian Jews that lived in Syria for many generations and had a lot of peace and harmony in a very big and successful community. Many of them, lost everything after that time, because and even before it, when pretty much they were viewed as enemies. They were viewed like as if they were spies, even though they've lived in Syria in harmony for so many generations. The Arabs flipped on them in a second and started burning their synagogues and houses. It was a nightmare. But nonetheless, there is a very, very big history there. Many Chachamim lived throughout the Middle East, in Turkey, in Morocco, in Baghdad, in Tripoli. There's many Chachamim throughout all the generations that lived throughout the Middle East. But also that's the Sephardic Jews that, of course, also lived in Spain at some point. But then you have the Ashkenazi Jews that lived throughout all of Europe, Poland, different parts of Russia, and so on. So yeah, there are Jews practically everywhere, and Hashem specifically did that. The Gemara says for multiple reasons. One reason why Hashem spread out the Jews throughout all four corners of the world, where you're literally going to find Jews everywhere in the world. Even though we're very few people, you're going to find us all over the world, more than any other people or nation, specifically because it's part of the ultimate purpose of the world. Number one, it's in order for us to help people that want to convert to Judaism, convert. When you have communities in different remote areas in different places around the world, more people can convert at the end of days before Mashiach comes, because this is the last stage. This is the last stop on the train. So more people are going to be able to convert. And two, there is different sparks of Kedusha that are dispersed throughout all parts of the world that we need to collect. Don't ask me what I mean. This is much too deep for this type of shiur, but the point is there's different sparks of Kedusha that are different parts of the world that the Jews that are holy can gather it by being in that place. By being in that place. And that's part of the tikkun of the world. So that's another reason why there are Jews in every part of the world throughout history, including today. One or two more questions and then we're done. We've already gone for 2 hours, Baruch Hashem. What is the significance of Abraham getting his name changed? Since Ham was involved in seeing his father's nakedness, what is the reason for this? And is it related at all? I have no idea how Ham doing what he did to his father is related to Avraham. They lived at 2 different time frames. But Avraham, his name change, it says it in the verses. God added a letter to his name, and that letter came from God's name. So in essence, God took the Hey from his name. His name is the Yud, Hey, and then the Vav and the Hey. So he took one of the letters of his name and put it into Avraham's name, and he did the same thing with Sarah. So in essence, he sanctified them. They became his chosen children, and that was the beginning of Am Yisrael. So that was the significance of changing the name. Now, as far as Ham being involved in seeing his father's nakedness, some say it really wasn't Ham, it was actually his son Canaan that he received the curse. And the reason why is because Canaan raped Noach. Canaan raped Noach. He didn't just see his nakedness. That's just the modesty of the Torah, the way it talks. He actually raped Noach. And some say that he cut off his reproductive area because Ham did not want to have another brother that he would have to share his inheritance with. He already knew that he has Shem and Yefet to share the inheritance with. He didn't want, and no one was allowed to have children in the Teva for that year. So after he saw that the only thing that's in the world is what they have, he didn't want to have another brother born now that they're allowed to be intimate again, that Noach, his father, is allowed to be intimate again. He did not want his father to have another kid that he would have to share his inheritance with him. So he ended up doing this. But for that, he got cursed. My cousin lives in a non-Jewish area and she is afraid of putting up a mezuzah on a doorpost. Can she put it on the wall inside the house, across from the doorpost? If it's on a doorpost, then it's okay. But if it's on a wall, no. She can't put it on the wall. She has to put it in the doorpost. But why would she be scared of putting, God's name on our doors? That's protection. If anything, she should be afraid that she doesn't have a mezuzah. The mezuzah is what brings the protection, not the plastic piece, and not the gun, and not the police. The mezuzah is what brings her the protection. She should be proud that she's a Jew, and even more so, most people don't even know what it is. Most people think it's some security device. They have no concept. So she shouldn't be afraid for that reason either. And certainly she should leave that area. If she lives in such a bad area that she's afraid to be Jewish, she should leave. A pregnant woman wakes up before dawn to snack up on something, but goes back to sleep. Must she say Birkat HaShachar again? If she wakes up and she wants to eat something, she doesn't have to do all the Birkat HaShachar. Usually it's if she's just going to be up for moments, she doesn't have to do a Birkat HaShachar, just wash her hands and then do the blessing on whatever she's eating. But if she's waking up for the day, then she needs to do Birkat HaShachar. The Birkat HaShachar is when you wake up for the day. And you only do it once. If you, I'll just add, if you fall asleep for an extended period of time during the day, but you've already done Birkat HaShachar, some say that you should say the blessings of the Torah, which is the last 3 blessings. The blessings of the Torah, again, but not the rest of the Birkat HaShachar. That you only do once a day. Becca, thank you for this shiur. If a non-Jew is trying to convert but is not yet in a formal conversion process, are you allowed to host them for Shabbat, staying the night to observe the entire Shabbat? Why are they not? It depends. Depends why they're not in a conversion process. Generally speaking, it's Jews need to understand that to take on a convert as a regular guest in your house is a very, very big responsibility and can also be a big problem. So I generally would not recommend it. As much as I love converts and I help converts on a regular basis, again, so long as they're not Jewish, it can be problematic, both for you and for them. Number one, for you, if they're not really serious about conversion, but they just act like it, then they could still have some of the tendencies and misbehaviors of the way they were brought up. That could be certainly very problematic for a Jew. That's number one. Number two, it's a bad for them because if they become a regular house guest in a Jewish house before they even started the conversion process, they could fall into that trap that I mentioned in my shiur about conversion, the dangerous lives of conversion, which is they start feeling too Jewish to the point where they start losing the desire to actually convert because they already start feeling and acting and looking like a Jew, which is a spiritual cancer that's very common today in the conversion world. Many people change their clothing and look so much, and they befriend a lot of Jews to the point where they forget they're not Jewish. And the community forgets that they're not Jewish. And many times their conversions either don't take place at all, or they just take an obnoxious amount of time more than it's necessary because they don't have that urgency. So my recommendation is don't host them until they become Jewish. If you want to host them once in a blue moon, you can, but not as a regular guest every Shabbat. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Also, as a side note, for all of you married couple, do not host singles in your house. Like if you have, let's say, a wife and 2-3 kids, and you have, let's say, some young man, needless to say, some young woman that want to invite to your house, invite them during the week when your husband or wife is not there. Like if it's a young man, obviously the husband, invite the young man to the house in the middle of the week to have coffee with them or something and talk to him during the week. Don't invite a young man or a young woman that's single to your house by themselves to sleep over. That's just simply stupid. Stupid for marriage, stupid for everything. It's people, I don't know, for whatever reason, people, become hotels for a lot of young people, and then they're surprised that their adultery is running rampant. So it's if you have even if it's your sister or your brother, generally speaking, single people, it's by themselves should not stay over your house. You want to invite them during the week. They go home after you finish. They don't stay at your house, sleep over. It's not healthy for a marriage. Your husband is still a man. Your wife is still a woman. Yetzirah is still the Yetzirah. Yours is Yetzirah. Their Yetzirah. The guest's Yetzirah. Everybody has a Yetzirah. Don't tempt anybody to do something stupid, even if you think it's as far from you as can possibly be. Trust me when I tell you, the stories I don't want to tell you of what I've dealt with people and nightmares that they've put onto their lives. So trust me when I tell you, single people, they're nice. You want to host them during the week, one-on-one, go take them for a coffee shop, bring them to the office, whatever you want to do, as long as it's the same gender and everything, that's not a problem. If you have a whole group of people, and they're just, there's, let's say, 2-3 couples that are coming over, and there's one person that's single, that's among everybody else, okay. But this, like, inviting this one single person to a house, doesn't matter if he's Jewish or if he's not Jewish, doesn't even make a difference if he's, you think he's holy. It's not a good idea. Not a good idea. Unless you have a completely separate house, for that person, it's a different story, but even then, it's you have to be careful. I never understood why didn't Rivka just tell her husband Yitzchak that their son was a Rasha, or did Yitzchak still not believe her? Why didn't she tell him that he's a Rasha? Listen, it's if you live in a house that that has a bunch of kids in it, that parents, number one, have different relationships with different kids. Some of them they're closer to, some of them they're more friendly with, some of them they're more stern with, they're more strict with, some chas v'shalom they're disconnected from, and some of them they favor them. That's like the baby. The baby could be 49 years old, but he's still a baby in his mom's eyes. And she's still like literally treating him like as if he can't eat for himself, and she gives him the food and the plate and the spoon and the cup, and please eat, as if he doesn't know how to eat by himself. Some others are like that with their kids. It happens. So it's sometimes it's the same thing with the father. So the point is that when it comes to parenting and it's always easier to be someone from the sidelines saying, "Oh, you should have done this, you should have done that." But when you're in the situation, it's very different. It's the perspective how Yitzchak saw him. Certainly, Yitzchak knew that his son wasn't the most righteous person in the world, but the magnitude of how wicked he was, I don't think he knew that either. But I do think that Yitzchak kept him closer, because he knew that if he wasn't close to him, he would get worse. he would get worse. And he did get worse later on. But the point is that it's a, as far as the mother could sometimes tell the father, even today. The mother could tell the father, listen, I can't stand her, I can't stand him, I can't stand this. And the father will just, care less about what the mom says. Why? Because he has his own relationship with that child. And the same thing vice versa. The father wants to punch the kid in the face because of how annoying he is or how he just did something really bad. And to the mom, this kid is an angel. If you lay a finger on one of his hairs, she'll rip you into pieces, turn you into Shabbat food. Yeah, but he just did this, and this. You don't touch my son. He's a part of my body. Yeah, but he just did this, and this. Doesn't make a difference. He didn't do it. He didn't mean it. What do you mean? He even wrote me a note that he did it on purpose. No, it wasn't him. No, he said it was him. He put his social security number on it. How do you know it's him? You see it? You didn't see it. See, it's not him. The mom will make 500 million excuses for that son. So parenting is, it looks easier from the sidelines. I remember when I was younger, stupider, and without kids, I was the best parent in the world, in my mind. Best parent in the world, in my mind. I would say to people, how could it be? My kids, when they grow up, they're going to be like soldiers. They're going to see yes, sir, and yes, this, and yes, that. In your mind, everybody's the best. In our minds, everybody's the best. Okay, last one. We'll take this. Let me see. Want to see somebody I haven't asked? There's only 2 questions left. Okay, let's do it. All right. Rafael is asking, how can we know we have successfully done a tikkun for a certain thing? Does the desire for that specific sin ever go away, or the desire will always exist? So it depends what. If a person made a big sin, and they have a desire for that sin, whether it's whatever it is, and they start doing a tikkun for it, whether it's tikkun with money, tikkun with prayer, tikkun with learning, tikkun with combination thereof. How do they know if their tshuva is accepted? Number one, most of the time they're not going to know, because it sometimes takes more effort than you can imagine, or different parts of it. But the way that's a clear indication is when the desire for that specific sin is gone. If they have, let's say, for example, they used to, eat something non-kosher. And they used to love this non-kosher food. And now they stopped doing it. It's hard for them, but they stopped it, and they don't even go to the restaurant anymore. And then one day, Hashem sends them a test by having somebody bring that food to their house, and they have all the opportunity in the world to eat it again, but they don't do it. They throw it in the garbage, and they pass the test. Within a short period of time after that, you'll see that they have, they won't even have the desire anymore. They'll look at that food, sometimes even get to the point where they find it disgusting. So to get to that point, that means that they've completed their tikkun on it. But there are certain things that even if you completed your tikkun on that issue, you're still going to have the desire. So for example, issues of morality, issues of intimacy, the sexual desire of a person, if they're healthy, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says that at the time of the destruction, in the Bet HaMikdash, the sages prayed to Hashem to remove the desire that people have for idol worship. There was a lot of idolatry at the time, and they prayed to Hashem, please, we can't handle this idolatry, please remove it. And the Gemara says that after the Sanhedrin all prayed, was part of them were Nevi'im, were prophets like Zechariah, as they're praying, and they did fasting for several days. Some say they fasted for 3 days after they saw it's accepted. Some say they fasted for 3 days before. Either way, after this session that the entire Sanhedrin had, a fire in the image of a lion came out of the Kodesh Kodashim. Now, you would think, oh, that's pretty cool. That's like something really, really good. That's probably like a good angel. Zechariah, the prophet, says, no. That was the Yetzer Hara of idolatry. That's how he looks like. That was the Yetzer Hara of idolatry. So they figured, since the Chachamim said, okay, since it's an auspicious time, to remove these Yetzer Hara from the world, let's also move the Yetzer Hara for immorality. You know, people are committing adultery, they're going with Goyot, Goyim, you know, the Jews in assimilation. Let's pray for that too, to remove the Yetzer Hara of immorality. And they wrote a note, and they started praying, and a note came from Shamayim, and said the word emet. Emet means truth. That's the signature of God. It means that their prayer was accepted, and they have a choice to decide. So whether they really want it or not. Of course, you need prophecy to understand all this stuff. Either way, the Gemara says, okay, so they want to see how it's going to be without this immorality, and they waited 3 days. And then they went into the market and they couldn't find a single egg, a chicken egg. Why? Because the immorality is necessary in the world. There's a certain amount of sexual desire that is necessary for the world to function. Now, certainly you're supposed to use things for the right reasons between man and his wife and so on, like we talk about in our series, but there are certain parts of it that are necessary for them to remain animalistic, which is for the animals. But you can't just remove it for you and for this and a custom made, because Hashem doesn't give partial blessing. Doesn't give. It's either the whole thing or nothing. So after that, they realized that they cannot remove the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination of morality, and the world came back to what it was. And unfortunately, today we're very, very close, if not identical, to Sodom and Gomorrah in some parts of the world. But B'ezrat Hashem, these shiurim will help people do tshuva and stop acting the way they are. We're from Texas, but my mother didn't want to tell us about her father. As for me, please forgive me as an American for disrespecting your people. No, I don't remember you disrespecting my people. And if you did, unintentionally, your apology is certainly accepted. Please continue to learn with us. Please continue to pray with us. Please continue getting closer to God with us. Our Torah is ethical teachings that are relevant both to Jews, to Gentiles, and to people that want to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you very much for learning with me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless each and every single one of you during this Rosh Chodesh. We have Rosh Chodesh tonight, Baruch Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless each and every single one of you. The ones that donate, may Hashem give you thousandfold more than what you do. When the ones that donate their time, donate their money, donate their resources, donate their ability, their learning, everything that you do, B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless you with more and more. And B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see each other and learn again together next week. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. To be honest with you, to give this lecture is a nightmare. If it was up to me, I wouldn't do it. There's going to be some graphic details. Not midrashim, not gemarot. We did that already. Where is Gehenom in halacha? What did the Hasidim actually say about punishment? Is there suffering? Is there a physical place of fire or snow? We're simply trying to verify that Hashem takes vengeance against the sinners or not.
Do you believe that angels, demons exist?
We're doing a Ouija board video today.
This is by far the largest near-death experience study that has ever been conducted.
What happens the moment you die? Person needs to know that he's not going to be here forever.
Yeah, I went to a place of timelessness.
It was me judging myself on what I could have done better.
Not the rebuke of some book. This is a rebuke of HaKadosh Baruch Hu when we go up to Shamayim.